Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have George Hayworth. He's a veteran, military veteran, founder of the Elite Sentinel Coaching. His mission is to forge leaders and build legacies by helping men reclaim their ability to lead and love their families. He's also the podcast host of Present Fathers Podcast. Welcome to the show, George.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You are welcome to the show, George. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are talking right now. We'll be talking about restoring authentic masculinity. But before we come to this, deep into the topic, let me understand a bit about your journey for the audience so that they know who they are listening to.
Sure. So my name is George Hayworth. I'm a husband and father, combat veteran. I still serve in what's called the Army National Guard now. It's a part-time thing. Worked in the corporate world. I worked for Infosys, so I'm sure you know who that is. And where I really got to in my journey was, I struggled a lot as a young man, even as a not quite so young man, late 20s, early 30s, even with really feeling like I was a man and how to be the right man in the different situations of my life. And the way I approached much of my problems in life was not good. I treated it like a teenager would. I didn't have the tools and the training to really handle things in a way that created better solutions for my family, for business, for friendships, all of it. So I really went on this personal journey to improve myself. And when I started that, my marriage got stronger. My ability to be a better father got stronger. Even in the military, even in my part-time role, I became a better commander to my soldiers. And a lot of that was kind of these things we get misunderstood about what a real man is. And a lot of it is not how strong you are, how tough you are, any of that kind of thing. It ends up being more about having empathy and understanding and stoicism, which I'd love to kind of revisit maybe in a second. But as I started to gain these skills and improve them in myself, everything in my life started to improve. So I then realized I can help other men on this same journey and to do it faster because I had to learn the hard way. It took me over a decade really of a lot of pain and trial and error, a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy. And so I want to help men get to that point much faster. And by extension, restoring men to what a real man should be helps their families, it helps their businesses, and it creates a better society across the board. Obviously, in India and America, we have different cultures and there are different aspects of that. But in general, men should step up and lead and solve problems where they see dysfunction. And the more that we do that, the better culture and society we will create around the world.
Right. Thank you for that, George. Now, how does a man know that he has deviated from authentic masculinity? Because at the end of the day, one is a man and you do all things that a man does, but there might be a slight bit of deviation. So how does a man know about this so that he can make a course correction?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think it's generally how you're feeling, right? I think a lot of men today feel salty. It's an acronym. They feel stressed, angry, lonely, tired, and yearning for more, right? So there's a lot of confusion about, or maybe a lot of dissatisfaction with where they are in life. And what I challenge men to do is look inward, right? Instead of blaming external things, where am I not doing the right things? Where am I feeling a lot of stress or anxiety? Where do I feel isolated from other men? And that's kind of step one. That's self-reflection. And sometimes that's painful. And I had to do the same thing. And it did not feel good to admit like, hey, I'm not very good at this. I've made really bad mistakes and I need to own those things and grow. But in general, I think the best way for men to learn this and to realize maybe they're not on the best path is to actually surround themselves with other men trying to grow and improve. And I'm not preaching perfection. Life is always going to be changing. We will never arrive, quote unquote, but getting better consistently is always the mission. That should always be our aim as men, is to grow and improve, whether it's in knowledge or in ability or our ability to love others. That should always be our focus. So brotherhood, other men in professional settings or in more, kind of behind the scenes settings, personal settings, building those genuine connections with other men is usually the best way that we realize where we are lacking, because that brotherhood that is created creates the space and the respect to have those harder conversations like, hey, brother, the way you're treating your family is not acceptable. You should do this, this, and this. And I want to help you, but you need to change. And that feedback often is very helpful. It also works for positive things. We are often so hard on ourselves or discount how good we've done with something or have a very negative internal voice to ourselves, where that brotherhood can be a very good positive driver saying, hey, no, man, you're doing amazing. Keep doing that. It's outstanding. It's inspiring. And those two kind of checks and balances from another man's perspective helps us get out of our own way and reach our fullest potential. And so this applies to relationships, how you perform in business, how you perform in any kind of organization. That feedback is essential. And most men today are very cut off. We live in this digital age. It's all about posting on social media and things like that. There's no real genuine connection with other men where we're honest about our real struggles. How many men genuinely go to other guys and say, hey, I'm really struggling with my wife. I don't know how to have this conversation with her. Can you help me? That's scary for a lot of guys. And another thing that's scary for a lot of guys is to have actual friends that they say, I love you. That doesn't sound very manly on the surface level, but the more that you build those types of connections, the easier it will be to manage life's challenges, because you'll actually have people in your corner who care about you. They're interested in your growth and your success, and it becomes a very supportive situation that just helps men thrive.
Right, George. So should we understand what you are saying is that men should become more softer towards other men and also softer towards them? How would you let it be? Because in the other area, if you see, it's the same thing that is happening in their relationship with women. And many a times men are also acquiring a lot of this feminine characteristics in a way, not in a very conservative way I'm speaking, I'm just hinting at something. And a lot of people are saying, no, this is a challenge to masculinity in itself. Men are saying no, yes to everything because society is putting pressure on you. Your relationships are putting pressure on you. And bit by bit, you are giving way to even the right things that should not be. And in a way, you are now trying to course correct. How do you do with all the dilemmas that the present day society and relationships have created for men themselves? And that's why they are so, salty, as you said, stressed also, including.
Yeah, so great question. And I'm really glad we're going to make this distinction. So I am advocating for men to actually stand up, to have standards, to defend those standards. And so let me walk you through what I call the 4 pillars of authentic manhood. It's king, warrior, mentor, and lover. Okay, so first and foremost, men are built to lead. You're designed to lead in some way. You don't have to be the leader of a company or a leader of a sports team or any of that kind of stuff to actually lead. You can be the lowest man in an organization, realize there's a problem, recommend better courses of action to change it, or refuse to accept, dysfunction, or in this case, right, things that are degrading what a man should be. You can reject those things and speak out against them and start leading from the bottom up. Okay. In your homes, you should certainly lead. Your duty is to provide a service to your family, and that's leadership. It's taking the hard decisions so you're not putting that burden on your family. You own the consequences of everything. So that's leadership. That's the king pillar. The next one is the warrior pillar. I think this gets confused. A lot of times we think about how strong we are and how much we can defend from physical danger. But for most of us, most of the actual threats to ourselves and to our family are cultural influences or things through the internet or movies or music, right? Things that are brainwashing in the wrong direction. So that's where men need to stand up more and to reject these things that they're saying, oh, be all these things that are, not manly, or just compromise your morals, compromise your standards. No, you should fight for those things and hold the line on those things. So an authentic man is very strong. Those are the first 2 pillars, are a lot of strength. Now the next 2 are kind of the opposite. And the combination of the 2 creates what I call a tender warrior. And that's what we need, is you need to be tough when it's required and empathetic when it's required. So the mentor pillar, men love to gain skill. That's a natural thing we do. It's fulfilling for us, but we also love to teach others, and we should. It's our duty to see others trying hard to grow and improve, of any gender, right? However old they are, wherever they are, and to foster that growth for them and help them reach their fullest potential. It's also one of the most rewarding things we can do. From the military, my biggest successes that I consider my biggest successes have nothing to do with what I did, but rather helping a soldier reach a new height. It's that proud father moment, right? Men are naturally inclined towards that, and we should lean into that and look for people that we can mentor along the way. And the final pillar brings it all together, and that's the lover pillar. And this is where things like understanding, compassion, empathy are what turn a man from just a strong guy into a true tender warrior. And this is where the stoicism comes into play. All right. I think a lot of people misunderstand stoicism, thinking that means I have no emotion. Well, you're not a robot. You're a human being. The strongest men I know have mastered control of their emotions, and they feel emotions intensely, especially when it comes to things like their family. They will shed tears for how much they love things, but it's not out of weakness. It's from a position of strength. And that's the challenge here. This is the hardest pillar for men to really understand, is because oftentimes we are so prone to shutting off emotions because we think that's tough, when in reality, true strength would be feeling the thing, gaining control over it, and then being available for the people in your life who need you to be that pillar of strength. Excuse me. And that's where the understanding comes in. Empathy truly means to feel what the other person is feeling, put yourself in their shoes, to try and find common ground and relate to them to help them through that situation. So when we combine all four of these pillars, right, you will stand up to cultural influences that are bad for your family or bad for you. You will reject those things. You'll push back against them. You'll speak out against them. But you'll also defend and protect your family fiercely. And everything is driven from a place of love, not for personal satisfaction or selfish aims. And so when a man becomes this and he balances these four pillars equally, he truly becomes a force to be reckoned with, even if it's just in his local community. Not everyone has to be a big public speaker and go try and change the world. If you just change where you are and make a positive influence where you are, that is extremely important. And that is a legacy that men can truly get behind and fight for.
Right, George. Now let's look at the numbers. You talk about, that men commit suicide 3 to 5 times more than women. I guess these are numbers for the US, but other places also are. So correct me wherever it needs a correction. So other places also, this is a big issue now.
Yeah.
Is it because of their own reasons, that because they are not able to cope with the present day dilemmas as a man? Secondly, is it because of the society which puts so much of pressure on them to be everything, a traditional man and a modern man and a person who believes in equality, women empowerment, feminism, and LGBTQ and plus, whatever it is, all those things you have to accommodate in your life, and you forget who you are? Or is it because of their relationships? I want to understand, how does a man balance amid so many different things and connotations that has come up in our societies wherever we are?
Yeah, it's a serious challenge. So I think you're right. Those numbers that I mentioned are probably more US centric. I forget the global stats, but it's still relatively alarming how often men commit suicide or are prone to suicidal tendencies. I do think that is a result of cultural influence. Men typically, from my experience, aren't raised with the tools to handle these things very well anymore. I don't know about in India, but in America, we have completely abandoned rites of passage. I had zero rites of passage. Like, I had nothing in my life to tell me, okay, I'm a man now. I had no other men tell me I'm a man now, right? It's just like, I got old enough. I guess you start a career and you just do your thing, right? And you're supposed to just figure it out. How foolish. Where else in life do we do that? When you start a job, they train you, right? When you go to school, you learn skills. When you play a sport, you learn the sport. You have a coach, right? So how come we aren't actually training men to realize, okay, these are the things you must do. This is how to be a good family man. We've abandoned it. So again, I'm speaking from a US point of view. I assume in India, there's probably not tons of great rites of passages, maybe to the degree there should be. But that's a huge problem, right? So then men are entering life totally confused. They feel inadequate because they don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to figure it out along the way. And no one feels confident when you're working from a place of uncertainty, right? When you have lots of skill and training on something, you're inherently more confident in that thing because you know you can do it. Most men don't know they can do it. They're constantly questioning themselves. And then that goes back to the isolation thing, right? So when you're isolated, you start telling yourself lies. You're harder on yourself. You start believing all these false things about yourself, and it spirals downward. And so that's where brotherhood helps to counterbalance that, right? When you're connected genuinely with other men, and it doesn't have to be like pouring your heart out every time. It can just be like, hey, man, it's good to see you this week. That fills you up to handle all this crap the world is throwing at you. Fighting back against the cultural influences, men need to just stop refusing to play along. Straight up, like, especially with things that if it's a religious belief you have, reject whatever counters that. If it's a moral line, don't cross it, right? Things like that. Men need to stand up again and start saying no to some of this stuff. I don't want to get overly political here, but a lot of the things that happened in June, I am against. On a personal level, I do not believe in those things. They are actually an affront to everything I believe in my religion. And so, I'm not going to go and condemn people, but I'm also not going to participate in it. And so just drawing that line and rejecting to participate in those things, for me, June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. That's it. And I'm an American soldier. I'm very proud of my service. I consider myself a patriot. There's one flag I am proud of, and that's the United States flag. So, if more men would kind of have that position, a lot of this stuff would lose its power in culture because collectively we'd be standing up against it. And they're terrified. Whoever's controlling all this stuff is terrified of men doing that. So if you can start winning it back. I forget the part 2 of your question there. I think I answered the first part.
No problem. Even I forgot it, but the conversation will continue because it's all part of that. It will come.
Yeah.
In some way or the other, it will come.
I think it was about balancing, right? Balancing all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the answer is you don't, right? Because it's impossible to be all these things. So there's a saying, like, the second you become something for everyone, you become nothing to anyone, right? And so in the same way, men need to, what is your mission? What is your purpose? What is the legacy you're trying to build? And focus on those things. Reject the rest. Don't pay attention to the rest. It's all just noise anyway. And we're so afraid of being labeled things that we sacrifice what we know to be right and what we want to achieve in this earth to try and appease other people. We need to go internal for our validation, right? Not in the sense of ignoring counsel and wisdom, right? That's not what I'm saying. You should have mentors and coaches that guide you along the way. But your self-worth should not be rested in what other people are saying about you, right? What the mobs of all these different movements are trying to convince you of. No, they should be internal first and focus first on yourself and your family. And everything outside of that is mostly just noise. And so if we reject those things and stand firm on what we know to be right, we will start to win back our culture in the way that we want to. And, I'm not speaking for everyone here. Obviously, I have my beliefs and my kind of point of view. But even if you disagree with me, I would have more respect for you if you just stood firmly for what you believed in as a man and protected your family and what you believe to be right, as opposed to just trying to appease everyone else. And when you step into this, initially it's scary. But the more that you do it, you realize how little power these people actually have over you. They can say whatever they want about you, and they can't actually do anything to you. And if we start remembering that and being confident in that, we will inspire others to also do the same. Because I don't think most people are actually on board with a lot of the things happening. I think the average person in America, probably in India too, are kind of like, this stuff's gotten out of hand. But now it feels like it's so hard to defeat it because it's gotten so out of hand. We don't even know where to start. It just starts with you. And if enough of us just stand up, spread out around and refuse to bend the knee, so to speak, it will start a movement back the other direction, back to some more normalcy and balance of these things.
Absolutely, George. So the whole point is that men, whatever they believe in, they should stand up for others also if possible, but at least for themselves and for what they believe in.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. So now let's come to the role of women. Amidst, women who have, who understand all these things. But amidst all this talk of, feminist movement for so many years, it is right or wrong in its own way. Everybody will look at it in that own way. Women empowerment, again, people will look at it in equality in the workplaces, amidst all those things, even in other workplaces, even in the armed forces, all those places. What should be the role of women here when men are trying to be, what they should be doing for themselves? Because this part, the masculinity that is getting challenged, that is also posing a big problem for women also. Because if you don't get the right kind of men, how can it be a good relationship for them too?
Exactly. Yeah. So let me tackle kind of just marriage first, right? From that perspective. And then, because I think workplace and everything else is an extension of this initial problem, right? So the family unit. Yes, a man should become a strong, tender warrior for his wife, right? Because your leadership is supposed to create a covering for her so that she can be fully feminine under your masculine leadership. So it's not to control, it's not to be a tyrant over her. It is to create a protection for her so she can be the fullest thing, right? So women amplify, right? Men don't have this. We create a structure, women make it beautiful, right? Women have a natural affinity for multiplying what men provide. And in return, men are very fulfilled by watching their wives thrive to the highest level. And so, our modern age tries to tell us that we're all the same. Everyone's losing. Men are losing, women are losing, children are losing because we're all trying to be the other gender. There are natural strengths that we have as men and as women, and the complementary interaction of the two of them creates a truly powerful family. And it's because the man is leading as a real man and the woman is leading as a real mother and wife and being fully feminine and not trying to become the other thing. And that polarity is a good and beautiful thing. We are designed that way on purpose, and we've forgotten that in our modern culture. And I'm sure people are going to try and cancel me for even saying this, but I'd like to give a personal example of how this works. So I used to try and do the thing where I would defer to my wife all the time and 50-50 and all that kind of stuff. The reason that's completely unfair is I'm essentially putting half of the burden on my wife. So in the military, we use this concept where if you're a platoon leader, a commander, whatever size of unit you're in, your first duty description says, I am responsible for everything my unit does or fails to do. In the same way, men, if you're a husband and father, you are responsible for everything your family does or fails to do, period. Which means you do not pass blame. Even if it's your wife who messed the thing up, you own the outcomes. You provide that responsibility. You take that burden off of her and you figure out how to change it next time. Okay, that's leadership. Leadership is not pointing fingers and saying you messed this up and pushing down on her, right? So my wife and I we've learned this the hard way, right? But now I tell her, look, you're not in a secondary position. You are my most trusted person on this planet. You're in a position of respect. You are my wife and you are our daughter's mother. So I want your counsel. I want your input. I want your recommendations and feedback. And then ultimately I will have to make the decision, but that means I will bear the responsibility of it. And you get to be your best self without any of the consequences. I will bear the consequences for you because I'm built for it. So that's what I mean by authentic masculinity. It's not to control women or get them out of things. That's not what that's kind of like red pill stuff. I think I don't subscribe to any of that either. What I'm projecting is that when men truly step up first for themselves and become a better man, it inherently creates better situations for the women in their lives anyway. And it's not at their expense. It's to benefit them. So that's the family perspective. I think that carries over into business as well, right? And obviously there are certain lines then that are drawn because it's a workplace. It's not your family. However, understanding that men and women have different strengths and weaknesses. Okay, let's play into that, right? So women are naturally a little bit more creative than men. Generally speaking, my daughter's a perfect example. Her creativity is insane. I'm jealous, but use that. If you're a leader of a team, recognize the natural human potential of your team and put them in differing roles that actually bring their best to the table. And so kind of that structure applies where in the home, right? But at the end of the day, you're the leader, and there are certain, rules and changes we have to make for a place of business, a workplace, but the same principles generally apply. And so I'm not saying women shouldn't be in the workplace or they shouldn't be in this or that. That's not my objective. But I do think a lot of the feminist ways of thinking are actually most harmful to women. They want women to become men. They want women to do all these things that are not feminine. No, I want women to be fully feminine, to feel free to be fully woman, because I can't do those things. Because I'm a man, I am limited. I have my narrow understanding of the world because I'm a knuckle dragging guy, right? We were created from the mud. Women were created from Adam's rib. They're already more refined, more beautiful, more, they beautify the world. So I want to make that clear distinction that authentic masculinity is never to control or extort women. It's actually to recognize, hey, we have a beautiful balance and we should protect them and allow them to be their fullest selves. And, you can kind of see this play out when you see a very strong marriage. Look at how the wife looks at her husband. You can see it. It's this subtle thing where the way she views him is like, this is my hero. This is my knight in shining armor. And it's not because he tells her what to do. It's because he takes burdens off of her and allows her to be fully her best self as a woman, and recognizes that she provides an amazing blessing to his life because he allows her to be fully feminine, right? And then in my belief system, right, my faith, I answer to my boss, God. And so everything that I do has to be in line with what he says. And if I'm out of line trying to push down on my wife, then he's going to have words with me, right? So I submit to my boss and she submits to me out of love and respect, not out of fear and extortion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. George, there is much to understand about these things, and that is where you have your coaching program, Elite Sentinel. Tell us a bit about that so that men know what they can learn from your program.
Yes. So in short, we forge leaders and build legacies. I don't think leaders are born, they are built. And so the process that I take men through is a lot of the stuff that I had to learn the hard way. And I'm giving them essentially the cheat codes, giving them the answers to the test so that over 12 weeks, they can really feel like they have confidence again. They know how to lead and they know how to stand up for what they believe in. We talk about honing your body, honing your mind, and honing your spirit. When you really do a lot of these things for yourself, you start presenting yourself to the world in a much different way, in a better way. Your family recognizes it. So there's tons of additional advantages that come from improving you first, because people recognize, hey, something is different about him. What is that? But in essence, what I'm trying to help men accomplish is to feel like they can be men, to have the confidence to actually step into the different roles in their lives and be the man they are proud of. And by extension, their families will be proud of them and everyone else too, right? And a lot of men, I think, feel like they need permission to be a man now, right? They're so afraid of judgment that they think if they want to make a positive impact on the world, that's somehow selfish. That if they want to provide more money for their family, that is somehow selfish. That if they want to have more money to be able to donate to charitable organizations, they're selfish. We've been convinced that trying to do anything good as a man is selfish and arrogant and only thinking about yourself. And it can be that way. There are certainly people who pursue money just to get more things, right? But there's also plenty of men who pursue more to bless others more, not to, benefit themselves more. So what I train men is to be able to accomplish that, right? Because you're not going to be able to make a positive impact on anything if you are so lost and fearful and stuck in anxiety and depression yourself, right? We need to restore men to a position of strength. And then through that, they can make positive impacts in their family, in their business, and by extension, the world through their contributions. And that's the final point: is real men, real strong men seek to provide positive solutions and impacts for everyone. They want others to win. A strong man is not going on the internet, seeing another guy be successful and talking crap about it. He goes, nice, that guy's killing it. I love that. Strong men aren't threatened by others' success. They want everyone to win. They bring people up. And so that's what I'm trying to encourage men again, is give them the tools, help them step into their lives and start making a positive impact. Because I think over time, when men start to embrace this again, we'll fix a lot of the problems that are going on in our societies respectively. And at a minimum, we will have much stronger families, which leads to much stronger kids growing into adults.
Wonderful. And there is your podcast also, where people can learn a lot from Present Fathers podcast.
Yes. Yeah. So the Present Fathers podcast is similar to what I'm doing with men specifically, but a little bit more focused on fatherhood. We bring on guests from all different walks of life. And the point is to provide the audience, ideas and ways of being a better father through the perspective of our guest stories. So we've had everything from, special operations, military guys, to business leaders, to, psychologists and doctors who are, like child psychologists. And, the point there is to be a one-stop shop for really good training on how to be a better dad, because it is very hard, especially in the modern world. Like we were saying, there's so many expectations on men. But with fatherhood specifically, you get one shot. You have one chance to raise your kids. And so it is very important to do it well. And so we wanted to provide that outlet for men to hear and learn and grow so that they can raise better kids.
Absolutely. There is much to learn from you about all these things, George. And I'm sure a lot of people would like to learn more, know more about you, also about your coaching. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, so the coaching, it's theelitesentinel.com. I'm also on Instagram. It's elite_sentinel. You can look me up personally. It's george.hayworth on Instagram. And then the podcast is the Present Fathers Podcast. We're on every platform, YouTube, Spotify, whatever. And on socials, we're at the Present Fathers. So you can find us on Instagram or any of the other ones as well.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.